Order in the courtroom. Judge Anthony Trenga boomed through the crowded federal courtroom as he brought down his gavel with a resounding thud. The sound bounced off the shiny mahogany walls, arresting the attention of everyone in the room for the tense showdown taking place before them. All eyes were on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who was about to cross paths with one of the most influential federal judges in Virginia. The air was electric, and what transpired next would have the legal world abuzz for years to come. Judge Trenga, his cheeks flushed with barely suppressed rage, leaned forward, pointing his finger squarely at Crockett. "I will not stand for these theatrics in my court," he stated, his voice heavy with condescension. The room was in stunned silence as the crowd watched one of the most dramatic moments in recent judicial history. Judge Trenga had been rebuking Crockett for the last 10 minutes for trying to bring up new evidence in a big civil rights case. His anger was clear, but what he did next would leave everyone speechless, including the judge himself. Crockett's reply was nothing short of remarkable. Composedly, she opened a leather folder no one thought would hold something which would not only reverse the case but also reveal judicial impropriety that would make legal minds wonder about Trenga's career. If you thought you've seen it all, wait and see, because what ensued was more than a victory in court. It was a discovery which would shake the very foundations of the American justice system. Hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the jaw-dropping revelation of what Congresswoman Crockett discovered next. This courtroom battle didn't only win her case. It sparked a chain of events that would forever change the trajectory of the trial and place judicial misconduct in the limelight. Stay tuned because this is a tale you don't want to miss. To appreciate just how much this moment means, let's begin by exploring the backgrounds of Judge Anthony Trenga and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, two individuals whose conflict is more than merely a courtroom argument. Judge Trenga, 71, has been sitting on the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia since 2008, having been installed by President George W. Bush. Having a law degree from Georgetown and experience at one of Virginia's most highly regarded firms, he established himself as a tough, no-nonsense judge with a conservative judicial philosophy. Renowned for his strict adherence to rules of procedure, Trenga had frequently been critical of lawyers he found unprepared, earning respect from the legal community and national notoriety for hearing high-profile cases involving national security. But his management of this civil rights case would put his impartiality into serious question. Was his handling of the plaintiffs unfair? Legal commentators were already asking, but few were willing to speak up. Enter Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a formidable civil rights attorney and criminal defense lawyer with a 15-year career before her time in Congress. Known for her meticulous preparation and innovative legal strategies, Crockett had earned a reputation for outsmarting her opponents. What the public did not know, however, was that Crockett had kept her legal credentials and continued to practice law, representing clients on cases of great civil rights significance, even joining the legal team representing the plaintiffs in this case. The confrontation started when Crockett's legal team requested to introduce newly discovered evidence, significant information indicating a pattern of discriminatory practices at several corporate sites. Even after Trenga initially refused the motion, Crockett wasn't going to let the case be sidetracked. Next came a stroke of genius in legal maneuvering. Crockett had been secretly carrying out an independent investigation over the past 3 weeks that had not only revealed evidence pertaining to the case, but also shocking information regarding Judge Trenga himself. If you're finding this analysis enjoyable, don't forget to like and subscribe. We go in-depth into turning points such as this one which usually get ignored by the mainstream media. Your support keeps us alive, providing you with exclusive analysis that counts. That morning in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia, the courtroom was more crowded than usual. Additional chairs had been brought in to serve the spectators, most of them law students from local universities hoping to catch the confrontation. As the bailiff brought the court to order, Judge Trenga appeared in the doorway, his scowl establishing the tone, setting the tone for the day's proceedings. "We're here to hear the plaintiff's motion to reconsider the judgment on newly discovered evidence," Judge Trenga started, his voice tinged with incredulity. "Although I have to say, I do find it surprising that Congresswoman Crockett has personally argued this motion instead of entrusting it to lead counsel." Crockett rose from the plaintiff's table, her demeanor calm, collected, and professional in her tailored navy suit. What happened next? Well, you'll have to keep watching because this moment would not just be a courtroom battle. It would become the talk of the nation. Imagine this, a prestigious federal courtroom, where every word spoken could alter the course of justice. On one end is Congresswoman Crockett, a tenacious woman who's not only fighting a case, but protesting the very system which rules over it. And on the other end, a tough judge, famed for his rigid following of procedure and iron-fisted authority. What if the confrontation between one woman's battle for truth and the strict rules of the courtroom intensifies? What if her determination might unmask a secret conspiracy? The drama that unfolds here is more than legal tussling. It's a battle for justice that will have you gripping the edge of your seat. The gavel comes down, and the game begins. Congresswoman Crockett stands before Judge Trenga, the gravity of the moment bearing down on her. She starts with measured care, laying out her case to present new evidence that could turn the tide. She doesn't rummage through notes or refer to anyone else. No, Crockett recites from memory, referring to case numbers, dates, and legal tests with such precision that even the most experienced legal minds in the room can't help but be impressed. But Judge Trenga, evidently unimpressed, cuts in, his tone stern as he questions her. "This evidence is too late," he states. "The deadline has expired. You've missed your chance." The room falls silent as everyone waits to see how Crockett will respond. But Crockett is undeterred. She doesn't let the judge's skepticism rattle her. Instead, she counters with the same calm intensity that has defined her career. She pulls out an email thread, documents that show the defense counsel knew about this evidence long ago and chose to withhold it. The crowd senses the gravity in her words as she continues to say, "This email indicates the defense had these documents months in advance and still didn't disclose them." The judge, who is now reading the email, looks disturbed, but he doesn't give in. "That doesn't alter the fact that your motion is made after the set deadline," he states. "The rules are absolute." Crockett isn't done yet. She steps forward, unflinching, with a quiet determination on her face. This is just the start. The actual twist is just about to take place. Crockett brings up the precedent, citing a case ruled on by Judge Trenga himself. This is no ordinary precedent. This is the actual ruling that will either win her the case or stop it in its tracks. She sets the Davidson ruling down on the bench, invoking a doctrine that Trenga himself had set forth only the year before: reasonable diligence. "Your Honor," Crockett states, "this is a rule that you yourself set down, one which applies to cases just like this." The room quiets. The judge regards the document, his face changing as he comprehends the ramifications. Is it possible that Crockett just applied his own decision in a way to flip the script? The judge, his discomfort increasing, fidgets in his chair. He can't help but appreciate the force of her argument, yet he still holds to the belief that the evidence is immaterial. "Even assuming your logic," he says, "this evidence fails to show the pattern required by the plaintiffs." Crockett doesn't blink. She knows that this is the time that can make everything. "With regard to materiality, Your Honor," she states quietly, "I have one last piece of evidence that connects all the dots." As she pulls out the last document, the tension in the room is almost palpable. What is it that this new evidence might show? Crockett presents the judge with an internal memo from the defendant's HR director, directly connecting the evidence to the case. It's a memo detailing the corporation's attempts to cover up complaints so that it won't make any national pattern of discrimination. The judge reads it slowly, and as he does, the gravity of Crockett's argument catches up with him. This is no longer about merely following procedural rules. It's about justice. "This," Crockett goes on, "confirms that the company knew full well what they were doing and attempted to cover up." The judge glances at her, visibly upset at what he's just read. Is it enough to change his mind? Or is he still clinging to his initial judgment? Here it is, the moment when everything can turn around. Crockett moves forward with another piece of evidence. But this time, everything is on the line. This isn't just another file. This is the solution to solving the whole case. As she lays it out, the courtroom becomes strangely silent. What does this last piece of evidence say? It's an email from the CEO of the defendant to their counsel. The email unequivocally reads, "Judge Trenga has been a trustworthy supporter in these cases." The room gasps. The stakes are enormous. Was the judge somehow compromised? Did his decisions get manipulated by who he knew? Crockett is now uncloaking the truth, document by document. The judge's face turns ashen. His hands shake a little as he scrolls down to read the email. This is no longer a matter of court procedure. This is about integrity, trust, and responsibility. The courtroom is stunned. The defense team shifts nervously, but there's nothing they can do now. The evidence is undeniable. "You're suggesting something very serious, Congresswoman," the judge says, his voice shaky with a mix of disbelief and defensiveness. But Crockett doesn't back down. "I'm not suggesting, Your Honor," she says with quiet confidence. "I'm presenting facts." She pauses for a moment, allowing the weight of her words to sink in before she continues. This email indicates the judge had a long-standing relationship with the defendant's lawyers, and that raises very grave questions about the impartiality of this case. With this last revelation, everything is turned on its head. The courtroom is polarized now, and the previously unshakable power of Judge Trenga hangs in the balance. What will he do now? The tension is building, and everyone in the room is watching him. Will he face the truth, or will he use his authority to shut it down? The answer could alter the course of this case, and maybe his career. The room is utterly silent. Crockett's audacity has pushed everyone in the courtroom to consider the integrity of the legal process. Will the judge persist in defending his initial ruling, or will he be compelled to recognize the concealed truths that have been revealed? This is no longer a case about legal niceties. This is about finding the truth, wherever it may go. The air in the room hangs thick with tension as all wait to see what Judge Trenga will do next. The courtroom was silent as a tomb when the meaning of Congresswoman Crockett's words finally became clear. The accusations she made were nothing short of mind-boggling, implying a colossal conflict of interest and possible judicial misconduct. It was the moment that would change the trajectory of this case, and possibly a judge's career forever. Judge Trenga's hands shook a little as he set the document in front of him on the bench, his previously confident self letting go. A previously straightforward legal motion had now become a full-blown scandal. Would Judge Trenga prove strong enough to overcome the burden of this charge, or was he about to be exposed for his previous misdeeds? Tune in as this courtroom drama takes an unpredictable turn. With a strong, unyielding voice, Crockett spoke to the judge, her words echoing in the still room. "These are serious charges, and they transcend the admissibility of my evidence," she declared, her voice firm but unyielding. She wasn't giving up. She produced Judge Trenga's own financial disclosure forms, papers that would alter the course of the game entirely. Federal law mandates judicial recusal where a judge has any pecuniary interest in the case before the court. Your own filings indicate holdings in Transcorp Holdings, the parent entity of the defendant. The tense courtroom was awash with a silent gasp of shock as all struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the revelation. Was the judge, with all his power and authority, caught up in a conflict of interest? As the sentence hung in the air, the defense lawyers leapt from their chairs, willing to stomp out this surprise attack. "Your Honor, this is an ambush," they objected. But Crockett remained unflappable. "No, this has everything to do with it," she replied, looking the judge in the eye. She wasn't just objecting to the admissibility of evidence. She was revealing something far more profound. She referenced Section 455A of the U.S. Code, which mandates recusal where impartiality could fairly be questioned. And then, with a subtle authority, she let fly the clincher. "Your previous law firm is representing the defendant's subsidiaries. This is precisely the type of conflict that the law was designed to avoid." Judge Trenga, clearly shaken, labored to maintain his equanimity. Would Crockett's move alter the whole case? Just as the atmosphere in the room was at its most tense, Judge Trenga, taken aback and not knowing what to do, eventually broke his silence. "This court will have a 30-minute recess. I must consult with the chief judge on these issues." The words hung in the air like an elephant in the room. What would come next? Would Judge Trenga decide to overlook the allegations and proceed, or was it a turning point in the case? The court adjourned, but the effect of Crockett's revelation had already taken hold, with whispers spreading like wildfire. What had begun as a humdrum legal motion had now become the news of the day. But the real repercussions of this showdown were far from being over. At recess time, journalists rushed to file their reports, and lawyers murmured among themselves, agog that this had happened. Law students were frantically scribbling notes, their pencils flying as they attempted to commit every word to paper. Crockett had just accomplished the impossible. She had revealed a serious conflict of interest in a federal judge's decision. The dynamics in the room had changed. By the time Judge Trenga came back, his expression was serious. He was not alone. Standing with him was Chief Judge Rebecca Hollis, a highly respected judge known for her adherence to judicial ethics. The courtroom, already tense, held its breath in anticipation of what would transpire next. Would Trenga stand by his actions, or would he have to face reality? Because of the grave issues presented, Judge Trenga started, his tone low. "I am recusing myself from this case as of now." The sentence lingered in the air, and momentarily the entire courtroom appeared at a standstill. Chief Judge Hollis moved ahead, assuming command of the proceedings. "This court regards accusations of judicial impropriety and conflicts of interest with grave seriousness," she declared firmly. "I will personally review all evidence presented today, and I've already contacted the Judicial Council of the Fourth Circuit regarding an ethics investigation." The room, still reeling from the shock, now understood the full scale of what had just occurred. Crockett's gamble had paid off. This wasn't just a victory in the courtroom. It was a monumental shift in the pursuit of justice. But the story wasn't over yet. And as Chief Judge Hollis spoke on, declaring the case was being reassigned to Judge Williams, the far-reaching implications of this courtroom battle were clear. What Crockett had done was not larger than one case. It was an attack on the very cornerstone of the judicial system. She wasn't only revealing one tainted judge, she was highlighting an endemic problem that had allowed conflict of interest to thrive unchecked. The courtroom hummed with the scope of what had just happened. But what would become of the judge's career now that the truth was out? Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed around Crockett. She was calm, cool, and collected, her professionalism unshaken. "This wasn't about personal confrontation," she replied firmly. "It was about making sure that our judicial system is fair to everybody, no matter what they have or who they know. The laws must be enforced evenly for justice to be served." Her words were not only significant in the courtroom, but also outside of it. What began as a courtroom struggle had now become an emblem of integrity, a defiance of the very nature of how justice is to be rendered. By the evening, the repercussions were irrevocable. All the major news outlets were reporting on the story. The Washington Post banner read, "Congresswoman exposes federal judges' undisclosed conflicts in dramatic courtroom showdown." CNN had a panel of experts on the law debating the broader implications of the case for judicial ethics in America. In hours, the Fourth Circuit Judicial Council announced that it would investigate Judge Trenga's financial filings and possible conflicts of interest in dozens of cases he heard over the last 5 years. The House Judiciary Committee, based on Crockett's report, opened a similar probe into undisclosed conflicts across federal judges nationwide. What had started out as a straightforward legal motion had now triggered a chain of events that could transform the face of the judiciary. Judge Trenga felt the repercussions immediately. He declared a leave of absence, and court records showed that he had started the process of recusing himself from more than 30 pending cases. Corporate cases that involved any tie with his investments or previous law firm. The legal community, both here in America and abroad, took notice. The scandal was simply too big to overlook. Harvard law professor Lawrence Friedman, in an op-ed that was widely circulated, wrote, "What Congresswoman Crockett accomplished goes beyond a single-case victory. She exposed a vulnerability in our system of judicial ethics enforcement that has allowed conflicts to remain hidden in plain sight." The echoes of this courtroom drama would be heard for years to come. Conservative legal commentator and former federal judge William Pryor admitted on Fox News, "While I often disagree with Representative Crockett's politics, her actions in that courtroom represented the highest traditions of legal advocacy." Judicial conflict of interest rules are in place for a purpose, and they should be enforced, whether it's the opposing political party that appointed the judge. What began as a single woman's quest for justice had become a moment of history, radically shifting the terrain of judicial accountability. 2 weeks following the showdown in the courtroom, the whistleblower who had revealed Judge Trenga's secret conflicts publicly surfaced. Her name was revealed: Melissa Chen, a paralegal who toiled in the defendant corporation's law department. What motivated her to speak out against the very system she had labored in? Her statement was straightforward, but profound. "When I saw how the lawyers for the company were bragging about their ability to control Judge Trenga, I knew I could no longer remain quiet." This had nothing to do with politics. It was about right and wrong. The effect of her choice would spread far beyond the courtroom. It was one that would radically alter the scope of judicial responsibility. Melissa Chen's act of bravery was nothing less than revolutionary. Her reports, which had revealed the secret battles, eventually resulted in a historic turning point. With a new judge, Judge Williams, the new evidence was admitted in full, providing a complete scenario of systemic discrimination within the corporation. The case that had started as a procedural motion now became an open revelation of corporate malpractice. The repercussions for the defendant were swift and severe. In only 3 months, the company settled a whopping $175 million and promised to make court-supervised reforms in its hiring and promotion procedures to all of its operations. But the impact of Crockett's courtroom win went far beyond this one case. When the dust had settled, the ripple effect of the courtroom showdown reverberated nationwide, igniting a national debate about judicial ethics. In response, the Administrative Office of Courts in the U.S. issued tighter, more rigid guidelines for judicial financial disclosures and conflict vetting. That was only the tip of the iceberg. Conferences for lawyers around the country started hosting special sessions on ethics compliance, with a special emphasis on avoiding conflicts of interest by judges. Law schools, such as Georgetown Law, quickly incorporated the Crockett-Trenga standoff into their syllabus to make sure future lawyers were equipped with the skills to handle such ethical dilemmas. This was not a victory for Crockett alone. It was a victory for the future of legal ethics. The shockwaves continued to echo throughout the legal profession. The American Bar Association revised its codes on attorney obligations when encountering prospective judicial conflicts. Crockett's unshakable dedication to justice had thoroughly altered the perspective of legal professionals when it came to holding judges accountable. However, to Crockett, this was not simply a career highlight. It represented a conceptual change in her national reputation. Though she was always respected for her expertise in law, her courtroom actions had now placed her among the leading legal thinkers in Congress. Law students, particularly women of color, started to regard her as a role model, showing that public life and unshakable ethical commitment could be harmoniously married. The most enduring impact of this face-off was the national discourse it created regarding accountability in the judiciary. A Gallup poll taken in a mere month after the debacle indicated that 83% of Americans thought federal judges would have to undergo stricter ethics rules and more transparency in their financial interests. It wasn't just a discussion, it was an epidemic. Just over half a year after the courtroom spectacle left everyone agog, bipartisan legislation called the Judicial Financial Transparency Act was introduced into Congress. This bill, demanding greater disclosure and the creation of an independent judicial ethics review board, was a direct outcome of Crockett's steadfast fight for justice. Even the Republican co-author of the bill admitted that Crockett's call to action had been a wake-up call that cut across party lines. The corporate legal community was not immune to the shockwaves either. The Association of Corporate Counsel released new guidelines, cautioning against any communications that implied improper influence on judges or anticipation of special treatment. Large law firms nationwide started reviewing internally their litigation communications, making sure they were the best they could be in terms of ethics. This wasn't only a change in the courts, it was an eye-opener that echoed throughout the corporate and legal world. As the months went by, the implications of the Crockett-Trenga showdown kept evolving. A Brookings Institution study reinforced what most had suspected. This was a turning point in judicial accountability. The report concluded that by revealing the ways that conflicts of interest could warp judicial decision-making, Crockett had assisted in fortifying public trust in the system. But for Judge Trenga, the honeymoon ended abruptly. The Fourth Circuit Judicial Council's probe into his non-disclosure of conflicts in 37 cases during a 7-year period was scathing. Instead of being subjected to possible impeachment proceedings, Judge Trenga submitted his retirement from the federal bench. His words were laced with regret. Although I have always worked hard to maintain the highest standards of judicial behavior, I acknowledge that my failure fully to disclose some financial interests has weakened public confidence. His resignation was the last page in a career which had been characterized by power and authority but would ultimately be remembered for its ultimate failure. The long-term legacy of the confrontation was captured most accurately by a first-year law student who had been present in the courtroom that day. In a viral essay on social media, she declared, "What I saw wasn't a legal argument. It was a masterclass in moral courage. Congresswoman Crockett showed me that being a great lawyer isn't just about knowing the law. It's about having the guts to make the law work for all of us, even when that means standing up to the most powerful in our justice system." Her statement explained what Crockett had done. Beyond mere legal knowledge, It was a demonstration of strength of principle and courage to tell the powerful the truth. To millions of disenchanted Americans who had lost faith in holding high officials accountable, Crockett's defiance was a welcome and galvanizing exception. It was testament to the fact that study, action, and fidelity to principle could defeat entrenched cynicism and restore belief in the potential for equal justice. The courtroom might have been where the battle commenced, but its repercussions would extend far beyond the confines of that room, redefining how the American public perceived their judiciary and their elected leaders. If this tale of bravery, justice, and accountability motivated you, then don't get left behind on more status quo challenging content. Subscribe now and be a part of the movement for justice in our legal system. Watch out for more game-changing stories that reveal how a single voice can do it all. Subscribe, and let's continue the conversation.